She better not mention that man's name today.
She won't. She knows who raised her.
6 years and he never showed his face. Not once. Today is our day.
Ma'am, your daughter asked me to give you this. Oh, thank you so much. You're welcome.
What is this?
Payment records. 6 years of them. Every school fee, every hostel bill, every examination levy, all of it paid in full. Signed by the same man you just said never showed his face.
What?
I saw the...
Your daughter is reading them right now. In my office. She has been there for 40 minutes.
Where is he? Where is David?
He has been sitting in the last row since the doors opened. He bought 1 ticket. He told me he just wanted to see her walk across the stage.
The morning Rebecca graduated, her mother ironed her own dress 3 times. Grace was the kind of woman who believed presentation was everything. If you looked right, people assumed everything else was right too. And for 6 years, everything had looked exactly right. The house in Lekki was beautiful. Kenneth drove a car that made neighbors pause at their windows. Rebecca had a bedroom with her own bathroom, a school with a swimming pool, and a stepfather who remembered her birthday without being reminded. On the surface, Grace had built something close to perfect. What she had actually built was a story, and like all stories built on missing pieces, it only held together as long as nobody looked too closely. Rebecca had stopped looking closely a long time ago. She was 11 when her parents separated, old enough to feel the fracture, but young enough to accept the version she was given. Her mother had explained it clearly, quietly, with the kind of calm that felt like honesty. Your father chose his problems over this family. He chose bottles and bad company over you. I tried, Rebecca. God knows I tried. But some people cannot be saved, and I was not going to let him drag you down with him. Rebecca had cried for 1 week. Then Kenneth arrived, then Lekki, then a new school, new friends, a new life that slowly filled the space where her father used to be. By the time she was 15, she had stopped waiting for a call that never came. By 17, she had stopped thinking about it. By 21, the day she stood in her graduation gown in front of a mirror, her father was a sealed chapter, a man who chose himself and disappeared. That was what she believed. That was what her mother needed her to believe. David had not disappeared. David had moved to Abuja 11 days after Grace told her she was remarrying and relocating their daughter. He sat in a 1-room apartment in Lugbe with nothing but a mattress and a phone that kept ringing with debts he could not pay. He had lost his importing business the year before, not to alcohol, not to bad company, but to a fire that consumed his warehouse and left him with nothing the insurance did not cover. Grace had not waited to find out. She had already been pulling away for 2 years. The fire simply gave her the exit she had been planning. He didn't fight the divorce. He had nothing to fight with. What he did instead was get up. 3 weeks after Grace left, David started his first job, night security at a construction site in Wuse. 12 hours standing in the dark for pay that barely covered his food. He took it without complaint. 2 months later, he added a second, daytime delivery driving for a logistics company that moved goods between Abuja and Kaduna. The hours were brutal. Some days he drove for 9 hours straight, ate in the car, slept for 4, and went back to the construction gate. On weekends, he cleaned offices in Maitama for a facilities company run by a man who asked no questions and paid on time. 3 jobs, 6 days a week, for 6 years. He never told anyone why. His neighbors thought he was chasing a contract. His colleagues thought he was saving to travel. Nobody knew about the envelope he prepared every semester, carefully, quietly, addressed to the bursary office of Anchor University, Lagos. Inside every envelope was a money order and a short note. Please apply this to the account of Rebecca Okonkwo. Do not contact her. Do not mention my name. He signed everyone with his full name, David Okonkwo, father. He had no way of knowing if Grace was paying separately. He had no way of knowing if Rebecca was even still enrolled. He had no address, no phone number, no photograph newer than the one he kept folded in his wallet. Rebecca at 11, gap-toothed, laughing at something outside the frame. He sent the money anyway, every semester, for 6 years, because the alternative, doing nothing, was something he could not survive. The invitation arrived in a way he hadn't planned. He had written to the university once, asking only if a student by that name was currently enrolled. The registrar's office replied with nothing useful. But 3 weeks before graduation, a woman named Sandra from the bursary office called his number, the one he had written on every envelope, and told her quietly that the student in question was graduating with a second-class upper, and that the ceremony was on a Saturday, and that if he wanted to attend, tickets were still available. He bought 1 ticket. He did not tell anyone. He drove from Abuja the night before and slept in his car outside the university gate. In the morning, he dressed in the only good shirt he owned, pressed it twice, and walked into the hall alone. He sat in the last row. He was not there to be seen. He was not there to disrupt anything or confront anyone or reclaim anything. He was there because 6 years of night shifts and 12-hour drives and scrubbing office floors deserved one single morning of witnessing. He wanted to see her cross that stage. That was all he had asked of life. He saw Grace the moment she walked in. She was on Kenneth's arm, laughing at something, wearing a dress that cost more than his monthly salary. He watched her scan the room with the confidence of a woman who had already decided how the day would go. He looked away and fixed his eyes on the stage. Rebecca walked across that stage like someone who had earned every step. And she had. Whatever else had been taken from her, her intelligence was her own. She had studied through power cuts and exam anxiety and the particular loneliness of being the new girl in a school where everyone else had history together. She had earned her grade with her own hands. When they called her name, the hall applauded. Grace stood up. Kenneth clapped loudly. In the last row, a man in a pressed shirt gripped the edge of his seat and pressed his lips together and breathed very carefully through his nose because he had promised himself he would not cry until he was back in his car. He almost kept that promise. It was after the ceremony, while families gathered for photographs on the lawn, that Sandra found Rebecca and asked her to come to the bursary office for a moment. Rebecca assumed it was a clearance document, something administrative. She followed without concern. Sandra placed the file on the desk without a word. Rebecca opened it. The first page was a payment record. Semester 1, Year 1. The amount, the date, the method, and at the bottom, in the signature line, David Okonkwo, father. She turned the page. Semester 2, Year 1. Same signature. She turned again and again and again. 12 semesters, 12 envelopes, every fee, every levy, every outstanding balance cleared before she had even known there was one. Her mother had told her Kenneth was funding her education. Kenneth had accepted the gratitude without correcting it, and through it all, semester after semester, a man in Abuja in packing envelopes and driving to a post office after a 12-hour shift to make sure his daughter did not stop. Rebecca sat in that office for 40 minutes. She did not speak. She did not cry immediately. She simply turned pages, slowly, the way a person reads something they need to make certain is real before they allow themselves to feel it. When she finally stood, her gown was still on, her cap was still in her hand. She walked out of the office and into the corridor, and then out through the side door into the afternoon sun, and she scanned the emptying lawn until she saw him. He was about to leave. He had watched her cross the stage. He had given himself that much. Now he was moving quietly toward the gate the way he had lived the last 6 years, without announcement, without demanding anything, taking only what he had allowed himself. She said his name once. He stopped. He turned around slowly, the way a man turns when he is not sure what he will find on the other side. She was walking toward him fast, the file pressed against her chest, her graduation gown open at the front, her face doing something complicated she had not seen since she was 11 years old and had just understood that something was ending. She stopped 2 feet in front of him. She looked at his shirt, pressed, slightly worn at the collar. She looked at his hands, rough in a way she did not remember. She looked at his face, older, quieter, carrying something that 6 years of silence had put there and nothing was going to take away quickly. She said, "You paid for everything." He said, "I know you had a good life. That was all I needed." She said, "She told me you were gone. She told me you chose to disappear." He did not say anything about Grace. He did not correct the record out loud or demand acknowledgement or ask for anything. He simply looked at his daughter standing in front of him in her graduation gown and said, "I was never gone. I was just working." That was when she broke. Grace found them 20 minutes later, standing near the car park, talking quietly. She saw the file under Rebecca's arm. She saw the way Rebecca was standing, close, angled toward him, the body language of someone who has just found something they thought was lost. Grace walked toward them with her mouth already forming an explanation. Rebecca turned and looked at her mother with an expression Grace had never seen on that face before. Not anger, not shouting, something much quieter and much more final. She held up the file once, then she turned back to her father. Kenneth appeared at Grace's shoulder. He read the situation in 3 seconds and put his hand on her arm. She shook him off. She stood in the middle of the car park with the afternoon sun on her expensive dress, watching her daughter laugh for the first time. A real laugh, surprised out of her at something her father had just said. And there was nothing Grace could do with her hands or her mouth or her carefully constructed story that was going to change what this moment had already become. That evening, David and Rebecca sat across from each other at a small restaurant in Lekki. Not expensive, not impressive, just clean and quiet with good jollof and a table by the window. She asked him about Abuja. He told her about the jobs, carefully, without drama, the way he had lived it. 3 jobs, 6 years. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You could have told me." He said, "You were a child, and then you were becoming something. I didn't want my problems to interrupt your becoming." Outside, in a car she had refused to enter, Grace sat in the passenger seat of Kenneth's vehicle, watching the restaurant window. Kenneth had said everything he had to say. Could say. She was not listening. She was watching her daughter through the glass, laughing again, this time at something that was taking longer to tell, and understanding slowly the full weight of what she had spent 6 years building and the single afternoon it had taken to come apart. The dinner lasted 3 hours. Grace sat in that car for all of it. When Rebecca finally walked out of the car, she paused at the passenger window and looked at her mother for a long moment. Then she walked to her father's side, took his arm, and they moved together down the street. An ordinary father and daughter, 6 years late, finding the rhythm of each other again. Grace watched until they turned the corner. Then the street was empty, and all that careful construction, the house, the story, the smile she had worn in that hall this morning, sat around her like a dress that no longer fit, in a silence that was entirely her own making. Some people spend their lives performing love for an audience, and some people spend their lives just doing it, quietly, in the dark, with no one watching. David never needed anyone to know. He just needed her to cross that stage. She crossed it. That was enough. Was Grace wrong to protect her daughter from a father who had lost everything? Or did she use his pain to erase him? Drop your thoughts below. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.